makes my job easy to have an employee like Tom Daniels. And you're going to see a lot more of him, and you'll understand more why I say that. You're going to see other employees of Allen H. Butz that are equally enthusiastic and dedicated. And it does make it easier to run a successful company. In fact, it's crucial to running a successful company to have employees like that. I understand that a number of you have had some experience in construction. How many of that is there? Wow, that's pretty remarkable. When I graduated from Lehigh 55 years ago, things were quite different. Number one, there weren't any women in the classroom, and that certainly makes it a lot more pleasant, at least from my standpoint. There also was no such thing as a construction management course, because there was no such thing as construction management. The way things were traditionally done was through a very, very different process. I graduated in 1955. I spent 2 years in the United States Army, which at that time everybody did, every male did. When I got out of the Army in 1957, I came to work with my dad. My dad had a small but financially successful general contracting firm in Allentown. And when I say small, he would do perhaps 1 or 2 projects a year in the $100,000, $200,000 level, maybe a couple smaller than that. And I started working with him first as an estimator and as a field superintendent and those kinds of things. And so from the company grew from 1957. It grew to 1977, and then in 1977 it went like this. And what the heck happened in 1977? It went from when I started, we worked on my dad's dining room table. My mother was essentially the day-to-day secretary. She used to complain that when my dad went out and I went out to visit a job, she had to be home in case the phone rang. We had a part-time bookkeeper who came in Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings. And we went from that to a company now that has, we have offices in Philadelphia, besides our home office in Allentown, offices in Philadelphia, State College, Harrisburg. We're doing projects in New York City and in Florida. What the heck happened in 1977? What happened was the advent of the construction management approach. At least for us, construction management had started a few years earlier, but we were not able to get involved in construction management until our first project in 1977. Now, why would just a different delivery system make such a dramatic impact on the volume of business of a little company like ours? Well, let me explain to you, and probably some of you know this, the system that was considered traditional at the time was the general contracting process, in which if someone wanted to build a building, they went and found an architect and said, I want to build a building. And they would tell the architect exactly what they wanted. I want to have so many square feet. I want to be able to do this in my building. I want to be able to do that. I want to provide the ability to grow, and so on and so on. And I've got X dollars to spend. I say I've got $1 million to spend. And the architect would then begin designing to those directions. Unfortunately, there's a lot of peril that is built into that kind of system. Number one, most architects aren't so good at estimating. So the architect is proceeding with a set of drawings that he thinks it represent a project that will cost $1 million, but that might not be exactly right. So he proceeds on, he finishes his drawings, and then they go to a bunch of general contractors and say, we want bids from you, and they give the project to the lowest bidder. Now, big problem number one comes in when the bids come in, and what happens if the lowest bid, you've got $1 million budget, and the lowest bid is $1,150,000. In most cases, unless the owner can find some extra money, he's got to go back to the architect and say, this isn't going to work, you've got to redesign, and they go through this whole process again. But let's assume that maybe everything worked out okay and the low bid comes in close to $1 million. What do you have on your hands at this point? You've got a low bid general contractor who has done everything he can possibly do to get to be the low bidder. And now his goal is, how do I make money on this job? And the way he makes money on a job is not always such a good thing for the owner. For one thing, he'll probably go and find the lowest possible, cheapest subcontractors he can find. And that's not a very good thing, because you have a bunch of people who, and he tries to get them to do it for less money than they would like to do it for. So they're not so good to start with, and then they're unhappy besides. That's a bad combination. Another thing that he can do is he can look for ways to cut corners. He can say, well, the footings are supposed to be 12 inches deep, but maybe when no one's looking, I'll make them 10 inches deep, and that'll save me some money. And there's lots of those kinds of opportunities on a construction project. Another thing you can do is look for ways to charge extra money. Every single construction, I've never seen a construction project that went exactly the way it was designed or intended. There's always changes. Things always occur that change the price. Something different has to be done than the way it was originally intended. And that's a wonderful opportunity for a low bid general contractor to make money. If it costs $20,000 to make that change, he can charge $30,000. So what you end up with in that situation is you have a builder who is an adversary. His goals at that point are completely different than the goals of the owner and the architect. And the owner and the architect have to spend a lot of time trying to keep those things from happening. You know, they hire an inspector to watch and try to make sure that the footings are 12 inches deep and all those kinds of things. And the relationships are terrible. In most cases, at the completion of a project, there's either a lawsuit or a lot of bad feeling. So along came this construction management approach, which is almost 180 degrees different. The construction manager is a partner. When you hire a construction manager, if it's a good one, he is a partner. You have a triumvirate of the owner, the architect, and the construction manager. And the construction manager, because he's a partner and because he's hired, the construction manager is hired not because he was the low bidder, but because he demonstrated through his experience and the presentations that he made that he has superior qualifications and has the ability to do this job quicker and better than other construction managers who are trying to get that job. So So what you have is now a builder whose goal is not to figure out how to make money, because the construction manager is hired at the time of his contract signing. His profit, his fee is established at that time. There is no way of him figuring out ways to there's no incentive to cut corners. There is no incentive for him to charge extra for extras, because everything is done as an open book. He's a partner. He's getting a fee of X dollars, and he is going to show the owner every bit of costs on his project. So from day one, and the fact that he's hired on day one being the time that the architect is hired, there are some built-in enormous advantages. One of them is that when that architect starts designing and makes a preliminary drawing, right away a senior project manager like Tom Daniels is able to look at that drawing and say, you know, the owner's budget is $1 million, but I've got a concern. If you're going to put this nice little doodad in here, which we'd all like to see, I don't think you're going to get that project built for the $1 million. And he provides estimates from the very beginning indicating what he thinks that project is going to cost. And if it's going to run over, those changes can be made right then and don't have to go through the entire process of finishing the drawings and then having to redo them. So the input at that time is very, very important. He also can make suggestions that not just save money, but improve the quality of the project. He might say, you know, you're specifying a certain HVAC system, which may work perfectly fine, would work perfectly fine, but I'd like to suggest a different one that won't cost any more, but will bring you a superior HVAC performance in your building. Those kinds of suggestions, both ones to save money and others to improve the project, are called value engineering, and you'll hear a lot about that term, I suspect, in subsequent classes. In most cases, on most projects, we can save more than our fee just through the value engineering process. And we can prevent that possibility that the bids run over the budget, because somewhere along the line, usually about 50% of the design, we can provide what we call a guaranteed maximum price, a GMP. That's another important term in construction management. And if the owner knows that the builder is guaranteeing the price of the building even before the design is complete, it allows the owner, if he wishes, and most projects have deadlines that are so important, it'll mean money to the owner if he can get in his project quicker. He has the ability and might decide to start the project before the drawings are actually completed. You could start the excavation and foundations, start ordering structural steel and those kinds of things, while the architect is still finishing the rest of the building. That's called, what's it called, Tom? Fast tracking. It's called fast tracking, which is another important item in construction management. So you can get your project built much quicker, being able to do that, and having that builder as part of your team from day one. The other aspects of construction management are really very similar. If there's anything that you want, that you should take out of the thought of construction management, is that it is a partnership arrangement. Because as the project goes along, those kinds of things just multiply in the terms of their benefits. the supervision of the project is based on the performance of the project. The superintendent on the job is not out there trying to cut corners. He's out there trying to get the best possible job for the owner, because construction managers aren't hired because they're low bidders. They're hired because they do a great job. So the questions that I ask when I'm walking around and stop at Tom's office is not primarily things like, how much money are we making on this job? I'm asking him things like, how is the schedule? Are we going to meet the schedule? We can't possibly let our client down by not finishing his project on time. And those are the kinds of, that is the thrust of everything that we do. Our goal, along with the architect and the owner, is to provide the best quality project in the shortest possible time and at the most reasonable cost. And this continues in terms of when extras occur, and as I said, they do occur always. All of the costs are shared with the owner. So we say to the owner, you want to add that piece there, it's going to cost $150,000, and here's why, and we show them all of the costs. And by the way, we show them all of those costs from day one when we're estimating the project before it even starts. We even give them the opportunity. A lot of owners have, for certain reasons, preferred to use certain subcontractors. There may be an electrical contractor who happens to be either a friend or a client of the owner, and the owner will say, I'd like to use my friend XYZ electrical company. Is there a chance that we could use him on this job? Well, we show him, we say, here are the bids. He was $2,000 higher than the low bidder, but if you want to use him, it'll only cost you $2,000 more. If he said that to that low bid general contractor, the low bid general contractor never shows that kind of information. He says, well, your friend was $10,000 high on his bid. If you want to use him, you have to pay an extra $10,000. And for all you know, maybe he was low in the first place. So this partnership is so important all through the project. At the end of the project, we do an audit, and we lay that out in front of the owner and say, here is every nickel that was spent. And we provided you with a guaranteed maximum price. The costs are less than the guaranteed maximum price, as you can see, and we're going to return those costs to you, so you're going to get a savings on your project. If those costs run over the guaranteed maximum price, then we're going to absorb the cost. So you can see the benefits of this delivery system. The delivery system is so impactful that you can see what it has done for a company like ours. For a company like ours who operated in the general contracting realm for quite a few years, almost 20. The general contracting process was very tough on us because it was so hard for us to compete with those people who were willing to throw out low prices and then figure out ways to make money later. For a company that was oriented towards doing projects especially well and especially fast, we were at a distinct disadvantage, and we struggled along for 20 years before this system came in place. So construction management is a partnership, and it works extremely effectively. Today, almost every significant project is done that way. When we started this, it was sort of interesting how we got into it. I remember one project in particular at Air Products. I heard that Air Products was going to build a very significant building, so I went out to see them and I said, we'd like to get a chance to build your building. They said, we're going to do this on a construction management basis and we're hiring somebody from New York to do it. And I thought, oh my gosh, we've lost out on a, and I didn't know what construction management was at the time, but I quickly found out. And then I thought, how the heck do you get into this? Because it fit our company and our philosophy so well. I thought, how are we ever going to get to do this? Because it's hard to do something, it's hard to convince an owner to do something that you haven't done before. We'd go to someone and say, how about hiring us on a construction management basis? First of all, they'd say, what's that? And then we'd say, well, how many of these have you done? We said, we haven't really done one yet, but it sounds like it really worked. And then one day in 1977, I got a call from Sacred Heart Hospital. Some people from Sacred Heart Hospital called and said, we'd like to come and talk to you. We're going to build an addition, and we'd like to do it on a construction management basis. I almost fell off my chair. I could hardly stand still. And of course, they came and we talked and we did it, and we finished it 4 months ahead of schedule and saved them $400,000 on their budget. And from there on, it got really easy. The next job I went and said, how about doing this on a construction management basis? They said, what's that? I told them, and they said, well, how well does it work? I said, go talk to the people at Sacred Heart Hospital. And then I got another job, and soon I had a whole bunch of projects to talk about. So the project work, the process works great. It has been the basis on which a company like ours has been very successful. So that's a quick overview of a pretty complicated process. And you're going to hear from a lot of people over the next weeks about some of the nuances and details of how that works. At this point, I think off the top of my head, I've covered, I think, the most important general things about construction management. But I'd be very happy, and so would Tom, to answer any questions that you might have about all of this ground that I've covered.